Hi, and welcome to Visible Secrets. My name is Ellaina Leone, and I am so excited that you are here with us, with me. This is going to be a phenomenal podcast. The Lord has really orchestrated some things for this podcast to come about. And the reason why it's called Visible Secrets is because there are many of us, including myself, that have walked through hardships, situations, issues, problems, and there's things that we've learned from those hardships, from those struggles, from circumstances that have caused us to come up with strategies of how to live, wisdom with how to live, how to grow, how to do business, how to build brands, all of these things, because life affects so many different things. And the whole thing is that we're visible, but there's secrets that we have. And those secrets need to become visible so other people's lives can be impacted. And that is the goal of this podcast, that whoever we meet with, they're sharing their journey and what the Lord has done, what He has pulled them out of, what He's delivered them from, what He has helped them through, and as well as how that has impacted their journey in business, and that how they've built their brand, if they're still building their brand, if they're just emerging in new realms of industry, and how the Lord has used their story and their life to impact what it is that they're doing to then influence the world. So it's exciting times. It is the first podcast, and we are starting with me. So we're going to be unpacking my journey, my testimony, what the Lord has done. And yeah, this is going to be interesting because this is the first time that I've really gotten nitty gritty with my testimony. So with that, I want to introduce a friend. His name is Marlon. This is Marlon. And he is going to be asking me all the uncomfortable questions that need to be asked so this story can get out of what the Lord has done in my life. So first of all, thank you very much.
Hey, I wouldn't be here without you.
I'm really excited for what the Lord is doing and what He's going to do through this podcast. And I'm really grateful that you're going to
Absolutely.
journey with me through
And nothing
this.
just happens.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Even the orchestration of today.
Wow. That's for another time.
That's another story. But yeah, we give God thanks, and let's unpack this journey. Let's
Okay.
unpack this journey. So I hand over the leadership of this podcast to you, sir.
Thank you very much. So, without any further ado, we're going to start. And I'm really interested to know about your foundations earlier on. So, where were you born?
Hold on. Before you dig into my story, tell them a little bit about you.
Okay,
Who
right.
are you, sir?
Who am I? I'm Marlon, as mentioned, Marlon Hector. We met like 2 months ago and we're
Yeah.
here already. For me, my journey has come across with a lot of resilience, overcoming obstacles, challenges, curves that life has thrown.
Mm.
Before starting my faith journey, to tell you about me, I've been out in the world. I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, I've seen the ugly. And my faith started from a very young age.
Wow.
I was born in a Christian household. I grew up in a Christian
Really?
household. Yeah, like my dad's a pastor.
I did
And
not know that.
yeah, and for me, I got to a stage where I wanted to see what the world had. I
Okay.
wanted to go out,
Oh, you got
experience
loose.
firsthand. And then through my experiences, I got to a stage where I was like, I am being tested. I don't know what this is. I have to come back. And that came
You
from.
went rogue. You went rogue.
Rogue.
Got it.
Everyone's got different renditions of rogue, but yeah, for
Nah,
me,
you went rogue.
I got my experiences, and when the pressures came, I was just like, you know what? Nah, I need to go back to my roots. I knew when it was time. And when I surrendered, it was through reaching out to a friend that was going through a tough time.
Wow.
2018 was a tough year for me.
Okay.
And I talk about challenges, I talk about curves, man. They were coming from the north, the south, the east, and the west.
Wow.
And through me reaching out to help a friend
Mm.
who'd also been like my support, I was like, you know what? I feel something moving in me. This is my time.
Okay.
Like, I'm surrendering.
Okay.
And then straight away at that time, there was this internal dialogue like, Marlon, what are you doing? Like, because to me, life is going to be over now. I'm crossing over. But like,
Wow.
I got to go at this all in.
Mm-hmm.
There is no playing church.
Nah. None.
And I held it for a moment. It was the Easter period of 2018.
Wow. It's
And
not
I
even that long
remember
ago.
Monday, Thursday, I said to my parents, I've got something to tell you, but I'm just going to hold it for a moment or two
Okay.
because I was still having that internal war within. Like, maybe I was just in my feels. Maybe I was just in my emotions. Is it really that deep? But now, Good Friday came. I was in church. I was like, right, this is what happened this
Hey, that
week.
Good Friday.
This is what
Amen for the
happened.
Good Friday.
I surrender. And boy, I can tell you the emotions. I was fighting back tears.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that
Wow.
that that, that is just a pin drop into my journey,
We gonna
into my
unpack that one of
story.
these days. I need to hear this rogue life that you went through and was
Yeah,
delivered from. Amen.
that's it.
Good
So
stuff.
that's a
All
bit
right.
about me.
Okay. Okay. I was deflecting a little bit, but it's all
Yeah,
right.
that's good. But I'm really intrigued to know about you and your foundations. Like, where did everything start? Like, where were you born? Like, I heard the accent straight away. I was like, oh, you from America? So, no, I was born here. I went to America. So, tell me
Yeah.
about that. Like, where were you born?
Okay.
Yeah.
So North London.
Wow.
Yeah, North Side. That was my stomping ground.
Wow.
Tottenham, Edmonton, pretty much those two areas was places where we lived or our family
Uh-huh.
resided, our close family. So raised with my mom, single mom, home,
Hmm.
and she was phenomenal. She did her best. She gave her best to give me um a good life. And she did. But I was just a rogue child. Because
Something we both
that's
experienced.
gonna be that's gonna be the word. But yeah, so I was born in North London was my stomping ground. Edmonton, Tottenham was really the areas that I lived in.
Okay.
It's just me and mom, my auntie, my cousins in my life. Dad didn't live far away,
Right.
probably about 5-10 minutes
Okay.
away, but he wasn't very present in my life. He'd show up here and there. Um, relationship was strained pretty much. Just what it is what it is.
Mm,
And yeah, so I grew up an angry. Uh, yeah, I was angry, an
yeah.
angry teenager. So I didn't make things easy for my
Uh-huh.
mom, and she worked a lot,
Yeah.
went to school, so she was gone
Yeah.
a lot too. So I'd be in the streets, as they say,
Wow.
the ends. I
Wow.
was in the
Yeah,
ends
the ends.
with
See,
the
I'm
men
East
them.
Ends. You're North, I was East London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you'd find me in other ends
Oh,
too, but
wow, wow.
oh yeah, so I hung out a lot. And if we're gonna stick on foundation, that's pretty much where I was from. If you want to go into detail, you let
Yeah.
me know.
So, okay, on that, before life took its current shape,
Yeah.
where you are now, can you paint a bit more of a picture about your teenage years? Because you talked about being in the ends there.
Okay, so that was pretty much the streets get to you. When you're in
Mm.
it, it gets to you. So you live that life.
Yeah.
Got in a lot of fights. Oh man, I even think now, I don't even know how. I don't know how my mom got me out of this,
Wow.
but somebody messed with my cousin. My cousin went to another school. So I showed up.
You showed up.
I showed
Like
up
you knew what time it was.
and the poor girl, she went through it from the school gate all the way to her house. On the bus, off the bus, down the street, in front. I think the place was called Safeway back then, in front of Safeway. I think in Angel, I think that area there is
Okay.
Angel
Yeah.
where Edmonton and Tottenham meet. Followed her all the way home, whooping this girl's behind. It was just terrible.
Good Lord.
But I kind of blacked out. I'm not really sure what happened. I just remember some of it.
Mm.
But
Red mist. You
uh,
you were just so focused on.
you messed with my cousin. Wrong one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do that. However, um, police was looking for me the next day. It was a whole thing. So anyway,
Wow.
had a charge against me, a GBH, grievous bodily
Yeah.
harm, and up until this day, and I haven't asked. I don't know how my mom got me out of it. I really don't.
The grace of God.
She got me out of it.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I didn't grow up a believer. I
Mm.
didn't grow up in church. I know my mom would go sometimes and such, but once I came of age as a teenager, I wasn't going. So I didn't have that foundation of knowing that the Lord is doing all of these things. It was
Yeah.
just more of we just living, we just out here trying to make it.
Yeah.
And with mom absent and not absent because she's not doing what she's supposed to do and
She's
she's
trying to
working.
provide, right?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
working. She, we older now, so we
Yeah.
understand. At the time I was like, don't know why nobody care. Just all these things. So I
Mm.
was angry. I felt rejected. I felt abandoned. So that came out in my behavior. I just did not do well. So I'd get myself in all of these different situations. And uh, I think another piece too is valuing yourself. I
Mm.
didn't value
Mm.
myself. And I can really look back and see that because even with some of the things that I did to get things, so stealing so I could go buy clothes and the freshest sneakers and whatever,
Yeah.
and then mom would question me like, "How you got these?" Ask no questions.
Oh, ask no questions, I tell no lies.
Yeah, but then by 12 I was a weed smoker, so
Wow.
yeah, 12 by 12 I was bunning. I was bunning
You
spliff
grew
at
through it.
12. Yes.
Wow.
But granted, at 12, you ain't making much money. So
Yeah.
you get connected to certain men them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sadly, I look back on it, but it's just the truth of what it is. I would let men touch me and stuff so I could get an O or half an O so I could go smoke with my friends. I wasn't sexually active then, but it
No.
was pretty much molestation, sexual
Yeah. Yeah.
molestation, because I was underage as well.
Mm.
I can't say I ever lied about my age, maybe once to one guy, but outside of that, like, I
Yeah.
mean, you could tell I'm a 12-year-old.
Wow.
Well, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I need to go back and look at some photos. But yeah, I
Most
got
definitely.
into some stuff and yeah, wow, what it is. I don't
And
know what else to tell you.
and the thing, while you're reflecting on some of your experiences in your teenage years, one thing I'll ask is like you've shared those, and especially just touching on how the advances were made by men
Mhm.
and getting the O, as you mentioned, could you help me and us to understand some of the key moments that occurred within your life that kind of shaped your view of the world as a youth?
Oh man. Not that I realized it at the time, but I didn't realize the absence of my dad, how
Mm.
much it affected me. And that was the one of the reasons why I was so angry. I think too, and this is a little beyond being here, but there's because part of my teenage years was in the US.
Yeah.
And there are some things that I experienced there that continue to feed the rejection, feed the anger, feed lack of self-worth, which is like I was almost raped at 16. And that's a story within itself, but I was in a predicament that I couldn't get out of, and because I hadn't been in the country
Mm.
long, I didn't know where to go.
Right.
And my relationship with my mom, it wasn't the greatest because of my behavior and stuff like that. And I didn't have a relationship with her to be where I was in trouble and I felt like I could call my
Right.
mom.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm in trouble and I need to call, I know I
Yeah.
can call her.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that I
Right.
could do that. So ended up in this predicament. So I think that was a big uh change for me because I felt, man, it goes back to no worth, but no value, but alone. Like, man,
Mm.
I gotta get through
Somewhat
this.
isolated.
Yeah. I think being homeless was a big deal for me too. Um, I went through that. That was yeah, that was a big change for me that hit me hard. I think one of the biggest ones though,
Mm.
and it stems back to, missing my dad in my life.
Yeah.
The relationship that I had where I had a wedding, but I didn't get married. And that's a story where,
Wow.
yeah, I got together with someone. We got this whole wedding together, but he was still married. So by
Wow.
the time we had got to the wedding, he hadn't done everything that he was supposed to do um, for his divorce and stuff like that. But we still went forward with the wedding. Um, and then 6 months later, he disappeared.
Wow.
So this comes down to when you're insecure
Mm.
and you don't value yourself, you will put yourself in predicaments
Yeah.
and situations. And I think that was the one of the biggest hurts, emotional hurts that I went through that really it really hit me because it changed how I moved with people.
Mm,
It
of
really
course.
did. That changed how I move with people and then stem into another relationship many years later. Um, the person, he was I guess a secret drinker. There's a
Yeah.
name for it. I don't know what the name
Wow.
is, but he would secretly drink. And it took a while for me to notice, but one particular day just couldn't manage his whatever his secret drinking he
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
drinking, and that dude almost hit me. I don't
Wow.
even know what the argument was. I don't even remember what the
Jeez.
argument was
Yeah.
about, but Buddy got in my face, and I felt it like, oh, if this continues,
It's
he
escalating. It's going.
oh no,
Yeah.
he gonna bust me in my
Yeah.
face. I'm not the one.
Wow.
I'm not
No,
the
no,
one.
no, no, no.
So I was like, you know what? Let me go in the room, and I went in the room, and something said, and Grant, remember, I'm not a believer at this time. It's like lock the door. And I locked the door, but he spazzed out. It's like kicked the door, punched the door, like all of these things. I was like, yo,
What's going on here?
this is
Yeah.
wild. And I
Yeah.
just remember feeling like I can't even believe that I'm in this situation.
Yeah. Right. Because
Like
like, how have I got here?
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had to go. He had to go. And then he had threatened me to after that because he was like, oh, I'll report you because there was a time that I was an illegal immigrant in the United States. So he was like, "Oh, I'll report you to immigration, whatever." I was like, "All right, go ahead and report him. They're gonna arrest you too." Yeah, because you harboring what's really good.
Wow. Wow.
I was one of those. So all these
Yeah.
things. So those are some key moments that I became very hard,
Yeah.
and after. I think after those two main issues with relationships, that really changed how I dealt with people and with men. That affected me in all areas of my life because I just became very mean
Of
and
course, because I can
hardcore.
imagine how much that would just transfer into different areas and your
Oh
perspective,
my
the lens in
gosh.
which you're seeing things, right?
Absolutely.
So, digesting what you've just said there, I guess you must have got to a stage where you were searching for meaning, like in your darkest of times. Were there any hints or sparks of hope? Because I've heard you say a couple of times you weren't a believer then. So,
No.
you mentioned being in the room and something saying lock the door,
Yeah,
and you
that
locked the
still didn't
door.
mean
So, where were those moments where you sensed there had to be more to life than just surviving?
I didn't.
You didn't.
No, I just survived. I mean, at that point, I was living in another country.
Yeah.
Um, I was living in the United States. I'd moved there with my mom. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of you, but I have to explain this too
Yeah.
to get there. But with moving at the age of 15
Hmm.
to the US, it was in South Florida. My mom was working on well, she did her immigration stuff with some lawyers, but evidently in the end, the way that they led her was incorrect. So they kind of messed her up with some things. Um, and we was on a visa. You get it for 3 years, then you renew it another 3 years, but after that you couldn't renew it again.
Okay.
By that time I had aged out. So I
Wow.
was on my own. I had to figure out stuff on my own. And then my mom had made some other changes. She had left, come back, and then finally, after maybe a year or two, she moved back to the United Kingdom. She moved back to London, and I wasn't going because it was like, what am I going back
Mm.
to? It is what we going back to?
Yeah.
There's no house. There's no,
Yeah.
you
You
know,
felt like you'd laid your roots.
not just that, but where was the money? Like, where do we
Yeah.
go? Where we staying? Where we living?
Of
You know,
course.
what we
Yeah.
doing? It's already rough here. Like we had gone through some good things, but
Mm.
stuff had gotten bad. Like there was times that we didn't have food in the
Wow.
house, and somebody would drop off food for us, some bread and stuff. There was times we was eating chicken neck with
Wow.
what they call it, chicken Campbell's chicken mushroom soup.
Oh
No,
yeah.
I think it's
Oh
mushroom.
yeah. Soup.
Yeah, and you mixed it with you mixed it
You
with
get the
the
bread,
chicken.
the
Yeah,
dipping.
like that's how we ate for a while because things just got rough. Like mom had went through a situation with the house that she had here, and I don't really want to put her business out here, but um, somebody did her dirty. You know what I mean? So it left us with nothing. So we went through some hardship. We went through, like, we were poor people and we had never lived like that before.
Wow.
Never. Not here. We just not. So now this is this rough life. So now going back to what are we going back to? What are we going back with? So part of it was pride.
Yeah.
Part of it was definitely pride. But I stayed. I was here, and as an illegal immigrant here, I had to there. Excuse me, in the U.S. I had to figure out life. You know, it wasn't no, oh, I can just go into somewhere and get a job. For a time, I did when I
Yeah.
was on the visa, but after that, no, I gotta. We hustling. We figuring life out. So sprinkles of hope. It's not that I didn't know of Christ. It's not that I didn't know about him. I just didn't have a relationship. He wasn't someone that I really looked to. Like, I would go do some dirt. I would go do something crazy and then wake up in the morning and be like, Lord, if you come, forgive me for what I did yesterday.
Mm.
Because if you come, I want to make it. Like, I
Yeah.
want to make it to heaven. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think a
Yeah.
lot of people live like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I did my dirt last night. But if you come today, Jesus, forgive me for what I did yesterday. Because I want to make it into heaven. Now, granted, when you mature,
Yeah.
in the things of God, it don't work like that. Like, come
No,
on, come on. We
absolutely
can't,
not.
you live in
Yeah.
righteousness. I wasn't living a life of righteousness, but righteousness wasn't a thing for me to process. It was more of, I'm just trying to make it. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to eat. I'm trying to keep a roof over my head. Going back to England wasn't an option for me because there was nothing to go back to. There was no
No.
home to go back to. So I just got to figure out life here, and hopefully some things will change that I can get my papers and stuff like that. So for 18 years, man, I was roughing it out
Wow.
in the US. And I can look back and see the hand of the Lord that helped me through that. That how I was able to eat, even some things that I was able to do. Like, there's people that would have longed to be a personal assistant for a multimillionaire
Yeah.
or neurosurgeon or, an entrepreneur. Like, I got opportunities like that because I
Wow.
opened up a business and worked through my business. So then I would pay taxes and stuff like that. So you figure out how to live,
Yeah.
so you're still because, through the business, I'm abiding by the law, I'm paying
Of
my
course.
taxes, whatever,
Yes.
whatever. But I can't go get a W-2 job. I can't go do that. So we just had to figure it out. So there being a slither of hope in a sense of life getting better. Life was more getting better. Like, let me get this money and life will get better. Let me up this cash. And in some situations, I did some things that were not legal. And
Right.
then in other situations, I was doing things that was legal.
Okay. But money was
Um,
always the focus.
it was always the focus
Yeah.
because that's how you kept a roof over your head.
Of
That's how
course.
you ate. That's how you were able to go do things. And some seasons it was really rough because there wasn't enough. And then there was other seasons where there was plenty, but I didn't manage it very well because I would smoke and drink and go turn up.
Wow. That's a lot there.
That
That is a
is.
lot there.
That
From
is.
survival mode to money being the focus and being on both sides of
Yeah.
the law in terms of keeping that roof above your head. And I noticed at one moment there, just reflecting back, you mentioned about the hand of the Lord. And that's one thing I just want to explore a bit more.
Okay.
Because at some point there had to be a shift, right? And you talking about not having a belief initially, Christ coming has to be that monumental shift, I believe, in everyone's life to turn
Absolutely.
around. So, could you share momentarily about how you surrendered to Him and how it immediately began to alter your perspective?
That is a story.
We're here for it.
Okay, okay. All right. So, this was a little after okay. So 2012,
Okay.
this is a year after the terrible relationship, the last one where Buddy was like, I'm gonna call
Yeah.
the people on you and whatever. So after that, I was like, I don't care about people, whatever. So I kind of shut down relationally and then just got focused, like, I need to get into something where I can eat, make some good money and whatever. So this is where I ended up working for a multimillionaire for that year. That year.
Right.
So now I'm making some money, I got my apartment.
Things are on the up.
We're doing okay. We're
Okay.
doing
All right.
okay. It's the beginning. We're doing okay. Started working at this job, and it just gave me access to a whole lot. Money increased,
Yeah.
yes. But the people who I had access to and who had access to me, um, money wise, they were way outside of my bracket, but they
Wow.
were very generous with their
Okay.
lifestyle, their money, all of that. So, the clubbing, the party, the house parties,
So
the
you're getting
mansion
these
parties.
experiences.
Yes. Yeah, you just South Beach life. Like turn up.
South Beach.
South Beach life. So which is like a 40-minute drive from Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
If it's at night, probably 30,
Okay.
depending on how fast
Sorry.
you're going.
For those in the UK, can you just give a bit more context to that geographical location?
Okay, so South Florida.
South Florida. Okay.
Okay.
We're with you now.
Okay, South Florida. So South Florida consists of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach.
Right.
So I lived in Fort Lauderdale, hung out in Miami, sometimes Palm Beach, depending on the types of parties or hangouts that you want to do. And then even after that life, there's still nice things in those areas to experience outside of partying
Okay.
and
Right.
and drugs and all that other stuff. But that was really the stomping ground. But anyway, ended up down in South Beach doing the most, and was enjoying this job, was spending all my money and not saving any. But I was living the fast life.
Yeah.
I would say by closer to the end of the year, my birthday's in October, so coming up to October, because I'm already a weed smoker and have been since I was 12. That never stopped. Um, but coming to fall, I was getting exposed to ecstasy, so pills and stuff
Right.
like that. And I was already at those type of parties
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So started popping pills, really enjoyed it. I even go sit here like I didn't.
All right.
I
All right.
enjoyed it.
Yeah. The honesty's coming through.
I enjoyed it, and I was doing that for a while. But within these type of environments that I was in, the only next step from there was coke. Start sniffing and stuff like that, and I was almost there. I was almost there. But what happened in the midst of that season, October came.
Yeah.
That's the turn up went.
Right.
I
Okay.
turned all the way up from October 1st to October 31st. I partied like I never partied before. I had turned 30,
Yeah.
and I was like, we doing this. Oh my God. Oh my God. I just think about it now. I'm like, yo, you're so dumb.
Wow.
I turned all the way up. I partied every weekend. I was doing stuff during the week. I partied so hard I got myself fired
Wow.
from the job. But this is all the hand of the Lord, right? But in the midst of
Yeah.
that, of all that craziness and um what it is what it is. I had got to the place where I was engaging. I was already promiscuous in my life because of the things that I had gone through. So I put off relationships and just whoever I wanted to sleep with, I would sleep with, and then I'm going home, or
Mm.
you got to leave.
Mm.
But at this point, I was now engaging in other things. It
Right.
was doing a little too much, a little too much, and the Lord was like Sodom and Gomorrah. Help,
Whoa.
God,
Oh.
help! I've had some encounters, and it's just surprised that those moments did not change me, because I remember being in the midst of something and I heard it, Sodom and Gomorrah, and I was like,
Clearly being spoken.
heard
Those
it,
were those words.
yep, and was
Clear
like,
as day.
skirt, and I removed myself. It didn't change everything,
Yeah.
but I can definitely look back and see that the Lord is like, you have gone too far.
Yeah.
Like,
There was that hand on your life.
come on back.
Yeah.
So anyway, in the midst of that month, my mom would call every so often. Remember, she's here.
But she's in the UK at this point, right?
And she would be like, "Oh, how's life? How's it going?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
How you doing?"
Yeah.
So she'd be like, "Oh, did you go to church?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I went to church." She'd be like, "Oh, what did they talk about at
I
church?"
knew that was coming. What was the message? You better think
So
fast.
somehow each weekend I got into the thing of coming up with a Bible story.
Oh, wow.
To keep this lady off my case so she would not, I just wasn't trying to hear the nagging. I wasn't trying to hear
Yeah.
the drama. Just, I
Okay.
went to church.
Yeah.
And one one weekend she called and I got caught in the lie. Because she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, yeah, and I don't know what story I told. And the fact that I even knew these stories was crazy. I think it's because I watched TBN. I would get high, I would sit and watch TBN and smoke. Anyway, so she was like, church wasn't about that this Sunday. I was like, how you know? She was like, because Debbie went to church and that's not what she said the message was about. So I was like, oh yeah, I didn't go. I didn't go. She was like, so why do you tell me that you go? I was like, so you don't complain, so I don't hear you nag. I don't want to hear none of it. I was very harsh and hardcore back then. I had no filter. My poor mother. Trust me, I have repented. I have repented for how I treated my mom back then. And she was like, I don't understand. So of course the nagging thing started. So I was like, okay. The church is around the corner, literally 3 to 4 minutes around the corner from where I lived. I was like, okay, I'll go. I'll show up. I'll do it. Just to get her off my case. So
that was your sole intention, just to get your mom off your case.
Just to get her off my case. I wasn't trying to hear nothing. Just I'll be there. So what happened was I would go clubbing on Saturday night.
Right.
Go down to Miami, or even if we did it in Broward, there was some clubs in Broward. But mostly we would go down to Miami, South Beach, or, if we want to hood it, we go to Dade, like deep Miami. Club, regular clubs probably close about 3:30, 4 o'clock, some 4. We would leave, then we'd go to after hours. After hours is in the hood. So there's an after hours in the hood in Miami, and there's after hours in the hood in Broward. So it just depended on the kind of vibe that you wanted, where we would go. Yeah, we choose whichever one. So we'd go to after hours. After hours pretty much is done when the sun comes up. So if the sun comes up at 6:30, 7 o'clock, 8, that's when we leaving. The jerk man is outside, so you just go get you some jerk and hard-boiled bread to soak up some of that drink.
Wow.
Because you're drunk. And then we would go back. Now, granted, we was a squad. Like, we rolled as a squad.
You rolled deep.
We rolled deep.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little too deep. And then a few of us, would go back to my place.
Right.
So, because I had a few couches and stuff. So they would come back to my place and they would pass out. Like, people would pass out. Choose a couch and they would pass out. But because of all this popping pills and stuff like that, I was totally wired and could not go to sleep. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to go to church.
Still buzzing.
So
full of energy.
As all get out. Still smell like the club. Wow. And go to church.
Soaring.
Yeah. I'd go in. They pretty much almost done anyway by the time we've, driven up from wherever. And I would make it there. I don't know. It's late. But I'd still go. Yeah. I'm there. So I'd probably catch the last 15, 20 minutes. Okay. I'd sit upstairs in the balcony. Because this was a large church, so they had an upstairs.
So you're kind of incognito. They don't see you coming
in. You can't be incognito with pink shoes and a short dress and your breasts all out. Wow. But that's how I went to church. Yeah. Coming from the club. I came just...
Yeah.
The fact that I ended up running that team is hilarious. But yeah. So, I'd catch the last 20 minutes. Pastor Max was the pastor at that time. He was old school, older man. But I loved him. Like, he was so and that's what I needed. He was so direct.
Yeah.
With the word, get your life. Like, you know what I mean? Dude, you're going to hell. Yeah.
I'm intrigued. What denomination was church?
So they're Pentecostal, but I didn't know that.
Okay.
I didn't know that at the time. As far as I was concerned, the church was non-denominational because I ain't know no different. But he would deliver the fire. I was like, okay. And then I'd leave. And that's kind of where I'm hearing. I ain't doing nothing, though.
Yeah.
But one particular Sunday.
Oh, good Lord. This is
one Sunday. I don't know what happened, but I got there early. I got to church early, so I couldn't sit upstairs. So I had to sit downstairs. And then the lady... The usher sat me close to the front. She walked me all the way. She walked me all the way to the 3rd row. And I looked at her and I was like, I don't want to sit here. She was like, but this is all the seats that we have? I was like, I want to go. Now, remember, everyone's seated
Yeah.
and church is still going. And I'm looking at her like, I want to sit here.
Yeah.
She was like, but this is what's open. And I'm like, I don't want to sit here.
Mm.
So I was like, I want to go upstairs. She's like, upstairs is closed. And then I want to argue now. And I'm like, girl, just sit down.
Yeah, remember
so
where you are.
Yeah, I just sat down. And so here's the things that brought the shift for me. So I'm sitting there and a video comes on and they start talking about, oh, we're about to do this spiritual growth campaign, 6 weeks in the Word. We're going to do the topic was 40 days in the Word. We're going to meet every week at a life group. And then Sundays, we're going to cover the same topics in the service. So this whole thing is combined. It's a whole campaign thing. And I was like, oh, that's cool. They meet at each other's home and they talk about the Word of God. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
You're in.
Right? Like, no, I wasn't in. I was just like, that's awesome. No, I just thought it was cool. Oh, okay, that's nice. So then they start doing the greeting and whatever, they get up and greet for like 90 seconds or whatever. So this girl beelines it for me. I can see her. She's coming right for me. And I'm like, oh, God. So she comes to me. She's like, Ellaina. And I'm like, oh, you know me. Hi.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't believe you're at church. I was like, me neither. Because that's how I am. I was like, me neither. She was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, I know her face, but I can't. Yeah. She was like, it's Safina, like from high school. And I was like, oh my gosh. Wow. Mm-hmm. She was from England as well. A really good girl. Yeah. So she was in one of my classes and because I was an English girl and whatever, she was like, yo, we got to hang out and whatever. And I was like, nah, we don't got to hang out, sis. She was like, why not? I was like, because you're a good girl. Like, you believe in God, you're a Christian, you share your faith. Like you can't hang with me. She was like, we'd have a good time. I was like, girl, I hang out. I smoke weed. Yeah. We ride around in stolen cars. You're not hanging out with me.
Yeah, you gave it to her straight.
Yeah, and she was like, oh, okay. I was like, we can talk in class. We can talk at school. You see me in you know what I mean? You see me out, whatever. We can talk. You will not see me outside of school.
Straight.
Okay. Well, she saw me outside of school. Here I am in the church. Wow. So she was like, you should come to one of our life groups. You should go to Nadine's life group. And I was like, no. She was like, you'd love it. And I was like, who's Nadine? So she points to the lady. I'm like, oh. And I had seen her around church because remember, I've been coming. Yeah. Late, but I've been coming. So she seems very popular. Like a lot of people know her. They always go to her and stuff like that. I was like, I ain't going to that lady life group. That girl wrote down that lady address and phone number. She was like, here's the information. They meet on Fridays at 7. You should go. And took off.
That's it.
She had to get it done in 90 seconds. This all happened in 90 seconds.
Your elevator pitch right there.
Listen, she did it. And God bless her. Yeah. For real. Because that thing went in my bag and I forgot about it. But that week, that Friday, I was leaving work. I was driving home from work. I was calling my friends because it's Friday night. We're going to hang out. We're going to smoke. We're going to drink. That's the Friday night. Yeah. That's the Friday night routine. Thing. Yeah, we get the drinks. We go to whose house we going to. We're going to smoke it up. We're going to drink. We're going to have a good time. Nobody's picking up the phone. I can't get no one. I call the weed man. I call my other weed man. I call the next weed. Nobody is answering. And I'm like, what is happening? I make it home. Still nothing. So now the night is going and I'm like, man, like I'm running out. Like I don't even got enough weed for the night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like looking through my bag and I'm like, let me see if I got anything sitting or whatever, which I happen to have a nickel bag, which is like $5 worth of, that's one blunt. That's all that is. That's all that's good for. So as I'm going through the bag, I find it, but I also see the paper.
Right.
And I'm like, oh yeah, they meet tonight at 7. Yeah. So I was like, all right, let me call my friends. Let me call the weed. Let me see if I can get anybody. And if I don't, then I'm going to go. Because I think it was already past 7. I ain't get nobody. I rode the spliff, jumped in the car, and went to Life Group. Smoked my spliff on the way to Life Group. Sure did. Pulled up at that lady house, knocked at the door. They opened the door and they let me in. I knew I smelled like a pound of weed.
Because I'm thinking they must be smelling that.
I sure did. And I went in bold face like,
Yeah.
All you gotta do is put me out.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And they didn't. And yeah, that was a powerful time because I don't remember much about the life group other than I walked in and they were watching the video. And then afterwards they started discussing things about what was mentioned in the video, which I didn't catch everything. But I remember this young girl, her name is Amanda. Amanda Apollon now because she's married.
Yeah.
And she looked real young. It's a young adults life group, by the way. But she looked like she was 12. And she started talking about the Lord. I don't remember what she said. I just remember how she looked.
Yeah.
She was shining. She was bright.
Yeah.
And I was looking at this girl like, I'm older than you.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be leading you. And I don't have what you have. And I left the life group with that. I ain't changed immediately. But that was on my heart. Like, dang, that girl got something that I don't have.
It
What's
really
that?
left that impression.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
She did. And I told her, you will always be a part of my story.
Yeah.
Because that was the beginning of the Lord doing something in me.
Yeah.
And in Nadine, but she's past the Nadine now.
Yeah.
In her life group, I was able to connect. I was able to be around young adults who were believers. And, you know, God forgive me, but I was very judgmental in the beginning because I just found them so green. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, oh my God, they're such good, you know, and not that they didn't go through stuff or some of them had their issues, but they were just so green. And I was very hard and just, you know, the streets had rubbed off on me. But it's not a good judgment to have because that's exactly how we're supposed to be, you know, and how I am or how I was, excuse me. Life is not supposed to be like that, you know. So, yeah, that life group did a number on me, connection wise with the community, but also Pastor Nadine and Bence, them opening up their home to me and then taking me under their wing, recognizing that Ellaina needed help.
Yeah.
Ellaina needed help. And they helped me. And that was the beginning journey of Christ entering my life through a life group and through these life group leaders who saw a broken young girl, not realizing how broken she was and how hurt she was. But they took time with me and helped me see Christ in a way that I never have. And that was the beginning.
So it was like a transition for you because, like you said, from initially going to church, catching the end, and then getting there early one day, having the slip of the address to go to, and then
We
of
call that a
options.
setup. That is a setup. That is a God setup. He was like, we gonna take your life, girl, and get you in this kingdom.
And here you are.
Here I am.
Yeah. So I'm now really intrigued to know what was that final defining moment where Christ really fully entered your life. You allowed him to enter your life.
Powerful moment. So that church is called Christian Life Center. They hold a 3-day encounter retreat.
Okay.
So you go away for 3 days and you encounter the Lord. Now, granted, at the time, I didn't really know that's what it was. I just knew it was a retreat.
Right.
So Nadine comes up to me. She's like, hey, the church is having a retreat.
Okay.
And I signed you up that you can go. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay.
In your mind, what were you thinking?
Yes, spar. Robes, slippers, like yes. I was like, they're gonna have a massage area. That's where you gonna find me.
Okay. Now that was a retreat.
Yeah, well, it was life-changing. I was given a different robe.
Yeah,
definitely. Oh my God. So this is what I had in my mind. I had in my mind that this was a late, retreat. We're gonna go have a good time. So she was like, yeah, I paid for it. I got you. Da, da, da. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah. I'm gonna go get my
The bus came, jumped on that bus. When we pulled up at the location, I was like, what kind of retreat is this? Okay. Mess me up.
What did it look like?
Well, the building was older.
Yeah.
And what it is that type of building, they used a few halls.
Okay.
to where they hosted
Yeah.
the encounter there, and then there were rooms that we could stay in.
Right.
So it's kind of it's a multi-purpose building because it has hotel like areas,
Right.
but there were other areas of the building where there were businesses and stuff like
Of
that.
course.
So yeah, it was that building's been there for a long time. So yeah, it wasn't no Hilton spa. You know what I mean? It wasn't that. It wasn't a
Sure.
West End spa. It was, oh, you're going to encounter the Lord here. Didn't know that until we started going through sessions. And I don't want to give too much away about Encounter, but I'm looking forward to hosting them here
Yeah.
because it was life changing for me. Now, the first 2 days, I was hard as a rock.
Mm.
There was no penetrating
No,
Ellaina. I'm just gonna
you were
sit
fixed.
there. Yes, I
Yeah.
was. But by the end of the second day into the third day, the Lord broke through. But he broke through in the area that I hurt the most, and it was rejection.
Mm.
And then you know, the purity issues of my life that I had over all those years and stuff. So those were breaking points for me of actually facing issues in my life that I had buried for so many years.
Yeah.
But when I came off this retreat, I got off I got off the I got off the bus and got into my car and I sat there for a while and I was just like, Ellaina, what you gonna do?